Let's podcast alongside Joe Giglio. I'm Joe Ovies inside Eford Studios in downtown Raleigh. Thanks to Empire Properties and thanks to Copiers Plus. Check them out online at copiers-plus.com. Print management, document management, get everything you need to the cloud. Make it super simple to save money. Just like I feel people need to be saving some sports stories. Like it's Wednesday after the Super Bowl, and I was listening to ESPN while making coffee, and we're already into like evergreen sports protocol on the Wednesday after the Super Bowl. I guess that's a byproduct of the blowout nature of it. So like the rundown, Dak Prescott says they're close to a Super Bowl. Well, yeah, man, I would expect that Dak Prescott. I mean, yes, please. I even want Bryce Young to say, yeah, man, it's close. That's what I want. Of course, I'm not going to belittle the guy. Yeah. If they think, oh, man, we're going to freaking suck next year. Like, if Dak Prescott said that, I think that'd be more of a story. So, no big deal. Look at Aaron Rodgers in the Jets news. Okay, whatever. We got the draft, Joe. We got the draft. Travis Hunter.
Sure.
Shedeur Sanders. Cam Ward. Who you taking? All that fun stuff.
The white quarterback has entered the conversation.
Oh, has it already?
Jackson Dart.
Of course. Again, why are you breaking that glass already?
That was
February 12th.
McShay. I mean, he that's his whole life. So,
but there's always something. There's always something that speaks to me. And again, we're in evergreen content mode the Wednesday after the Super Bowl, and I present to you our friend Brendan Marks over at The Athletic with a brand spanking news story. For 2+ years, North Carolina has secretly poured over $600,000 into a project known only by a code name. Look, man, shout out to Brendan. I am hooked.
Get me.
A code name, a secret. The Carolina Blue Matter. I mean, I know we got a new Marvel movie dropping. Is Captain America involved? We're going to get Red Hulk? What's happening right now? What is the Carolina Blue Matter?
You can potentially explain Red Hulk to me at some point, right?
It's just another Hulk.
Okay.
I mean, Harrison Ford gets radiated, and now he's Red Hulk. It is what it is. UNC's behind-the-scenes look into conference realignment. I'm like, there it is. I'm like the Leo meme. I'm snapping and pointing. There's my evergreen, baby, because you can always go to college realignment. What do we got here? So the gist of this story from Brendan at The Athletic is essentially that
600,000 is not a lot.
Not a lot of money. It's really not a lot of money.
They spent more on their lights at Kenan Stadium and to replace the turf at Kenan Stadium than they did on this.
By the way, quick tangent. I mean, how many more daggers can you stick into Mac Brown?
Oh,
we're
gonna have real grass. We're a real football program.
You get, Mac Brown goes back to artificial turf, which is dumb. I never liked that idea to begin with, but now they're like, yeah, that old man didn't know what he was talking about. We need real grass. Sorry, quick tangent there. Anyway, this is directly from Brendan's piece at The Athletic. 2 senior UNC officials, granted anonymity because they were not authorized to speak publicly on the Carolina Blue Matter, confirmed that the documents suggested, but did not spell out directly, that the Carolina Blue Matter is North Carolina's behind-the-scenes look at realignment. These numbers, the $600,000, billable hours upwards in the $900 range or whatever it is essentially Carolina doing its due diligence. Quote, a source said that look could best be described as the university doing its due diligence amid a constantly shifting landscape rather than an aggressive legal ploy. That said, about half the matter's total expenses, $310,000, came from work during the first 4 months of 2024. That time frame covers a pivotal period in realignment maneuvering and posturing. The immediate aftermath of Florida State and the ACC suing each other just before Christmas of 2023, dueling lawsuits filed by the ACC and Clemson in March of 2024, and North Carolina State's university system seizing more conference realignment power from individual schools. This was in February of 2024. Our guy, David McKenzie, who has been covering this realignment stuff and absolutely hammering Carolina when it comes to wasteful spending, put this out on Twitter. What public institution, especially one in North Carolina, agrees to $990 an hour in legal fees? Hold up. Is that the rate in NC? No, it's not. This billing is absurd. What's up with the court reporting fees, Carolina? court reporters charged by the page. So essentially, David is getting at wasteful spending by the university. But I would say this, who agrees to $990 an hour in legal fees? Well, looking at the law firm, and remember, I'm just kind of a lawyer through osmosis, thanks to Kelly. This Skadden is one of these super fancy big New York firms. And I can tell you right now, knowing what I know about billable hours locally, that's a freaking steal. They got a cut rate on billable hours out of that New York firm, man. So really, they're saving money. They got a deal out of Skadden, best I can tell. So getting back to the reporting here, this all sounds cool. This all sounds, like we're dealing with the Winter Soldier, and has he been activated, and what's going on here? Is there somebody on the board of trustees that's going to activate for Carolina? Next thing you know, they're in the SEC.
Who's John Slattery in this movie?
It's got to be Bubba, right? So, because he's going to get whacked by John Pryor along the way. That's what's going to happen. And oh, by the way, there was a John Pryor quote in here too. So our guy, if I can pull this up from Brendan's story, the part to me, which was hilarious, was this blurb. Let me see if I can find it really quick, because I had to put it in Brendan's timeline. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Here it is. Pryor added regarding a potential 9-figure fee required to leave the ACC that he had, quote, no desire to disagree with our own team, particularly in public, but no one should not be making statements that quantify the exit cost at 600 to 700 million. That perception hurts us. Basically saying we shouldn't agree that the exit would be this amount of money,
okay,
but we shouldn't make it public. Joe, can you refresh my memory what John Pryor did not too long after that supposed email?
Yeah.
Exactly. So if you're wondering, all right, well, what's really going on here? Well, best I can tell on this reporting is that North Carolina was doing exactly what we just laid out, their due diligence. And if I'm not going to bang on Carolina here, because Carolina understands that they are the brand that another conference like the SEC or the Big Ten would want. Also, this would be doing it correctly. Let Florida State and Clemson be the ones that are on the front lines, taking the arrows and getting dunked on by people for their bad legal filings and everything else. We'll just kind of, hey, is there anything else we could do? Not spend that much money, and then let them figure it out. And if they do figure it out, well, thanks, guys. We appreciate you opening the door for us. Now, if you'll excuse us, the real brand has shown up. That's my read on this, and I'm not going to bang on Carolina for this. I'm just not.
No, all of these schools should figure out what's best for them moving forward and what their options are moving forward. Now, there are no other schools that have the opportunities that Carolina does because of who they are.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Housekeeping. And it's brought to you by Enovana. Check them out online at enovana.com. Green Cleaning Solutions. They're coming to my house next week, just letting you know.
If you have mess inside your mansion or trash in your cabana, get it clean with Enovana.
So we have been told you like hats. So we have decided to introduce.
This is exciting. You should have gotten a song for this.
I have
disappoint me sometimes. We went and did a podcast yesterday, and they had like a producer. He had buttons, and I was wistful. We left there, and I was wistful.
I mean, you control the purse strings. Do you want to hire a producer?
I don't control the purse strings. I have a grasp on the purse strings.
If this were Game of Thrones, you would be the Lannisters. You control the coin.
The master of coin.
You are the master of coin.
Well, yeah, it's fair because the Iron Bank is really the ones who do. Not
this is true. You have no power here. So, okay.
Yeah, I was just wistful. That's all.
Okay.
Like, it was nice. Like, right now, I'll be like, hey, Garcon, music. We have a big announcement.
I would argue we never had that, but okay.
So careful.
I mean, in one instance, it was like, hey. Hey, can you get out of the dart? Cool. I don't know where that file is.
I just want a little bit of music for our big announcement. You don't need to slander anybody.
There, some air horns. You want some applause? You got buttons.
Loosen up my buttons, because you ain't fronting.
All right, so can I get to the OG hat vault?
Yeah.
You done complaining?
Good. I like that logo too.
So who put that logo together, Joe?
You have a passion for graphics.
I really do have a
I need
passion.
you to get a passion
For
for
what?
production.
Oh, okay. I see. And you know what's funny? Let me see if
But
I
you
can
got to
actually.
promote the vault.
Well, hold on a second. Here's what's funny about this, because I got to, like, there's only so much time in the day, right?
Yes, I know.
And I was doing a bunch of stuff, and I went to Adobe to see if I can find some stock, and I can't figure out green screen, right? So here's what I wanted to do. Here's this vault opening up, right?
Ooh.
And then the vault, if you're watching on YouTube, the vault opens up to this big green screen. But here's the problem. I don't know how to do green screen. So what I wanted to do in this video
Have
was
those
when it
picture
opens
of
up,
that logo with the hats.
and then the vault is there with the hats.
Kind of like
what
the Jordan wall. We'd have our very own Jordan wall.
Right. That's what I wanted to do.
Backlight
Unfortunately, I cannot do it. So back to the OG hat vault. Way to have an unveiling here.
Yeah.
So to reset, we've heard you like hats.
Yeah.
So we are doing the OG hat vault. Very similar to the Disney vault. If you're old enough, you'll remember exactly what's going on here.
You're going to get Snow White for these 2 weeks.
And once it goes back into the vault, we'll never know when it'll come out again, i.e. when Disney needs to make a quick buck. So to that end, we present to you the OG hat vault. This is the Dead Conference logo hat. It's on a Richardson 112. You can go ice cream style with the white mesh, or you can go with the all one color mesh.
So the Richardson is the hat that we originally did that we sold access to.
It's the trucker hat.
Yeah, the trucker.
That people seem to like.
Yeah, very comfortable. Really, really like that.
And then there's the dad hat, the relaxed dad hat, which I'm actually rocking right now for the OG Triangle Media Founders Club.
White for the original access hats.
Terrible idea for me.
But the comfort was great. It was just the color choice that we missed on.
A terrible idea for me because mine's already yellow.
Okay, so you're saying we have 4 choices in the trucker?
So we
and
have
8 in the trucker and 4 in the dad.
Yes.
Okay.
And those colors are chosen very, very specifically.
Right. They may have an association with teams in the triangle.
Could be.
Maybe.
So it's like, well, wait a minute. Well, how do I have access to these?
No. This is not an access. This is a full-on, on-the-table, legitimate operation.
How do I have access to this OG hat vault? It's very, very simple. Go into the description of this YouTube video. Go into the description of your podcast, and there will be a link to the OG hat vault.
Yeah.
Check out my social media. Check out Giglio's social media. Check out Instagram. There will be a link to the OG hat vault. It'll send you to the page. You can pick your style of hat, and then you can pick your color, and then it will be shipped to you for the low cost of $30 per hat. Now you're asking, why is it a vault? Well, you see, on February 25th, the vault closes, and these hats will not be available ever again until we need to make a quick buck. But they'll never be available again. They go in there with Cinderella, never coming out.
Our timing here is to have you be able to wear this hat to the ACC tournament.
Yes.
That's what we're shooting for.
They should ship in time for you to rock them in Charlotte. That is the goal. So that's the OG hat vault.
Perfect.
What a rollout.
Well done.
And if any of you know how to do green screen, let me know, because I sure as hell don't. It's definitely a failure.
There's a youth out there that can help us.
Dude, man. I mean, graphic design is my passion, but it only goes so far. Big thanks to our friends over at Two Roosters. Valentine's Day is Friday. This is really easy, y'all. Go get pints of ice cream. That's the way to somebody's heart. So go to tworoosters.com. It is breakfast style ice cream right now. You can also get things like cakes and whatnot, or better yet, just make it a date night. Okay. Go out to dinner and then close out the night at Two Roosters.
Lady and the Trampet.
Right?
Yeah.
I like that. I like your idea.
I'll meet you at the Crispy.
So head on over to Two Roosters, tworoosters.com, and make that date night happen. If you're actually looking for a place to enjoy dinner, and not sweating reservations, because let's be real, it is cutthroat out there. And sometimes you just want a low-key, chill Valentine's Day. May I suggest you bundle up and you snuggle under a heater at Longleaf. That's what you should do. So head on over to Longleaf Swine and you can enjoy some wonderful barbecue-inspired plates. Obviously, you have your barbecue, which is fantastic. You got your brisket, which is fantastic. But there's also the smash burger, the chicken pot pie, which will keep you warm, Brunswick stew, all sorts of goodies.
Brunswick stew is delicious. I got that last time.
You're funny watching you eat sometimes, and it's like you overindulge.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what's he going to order? Wow, you went Brunswick stew. You followed it up with pimento cheese. And then next thing you know, you got the catfish plate. I'm like, buddy, it's nap time.
We were grazing.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
It's grazing. Well, go graze with your sweetie at Longleaf Swine. Check them out, longleafswine.com. And of course, I don't know, maybe things you hit it off, it's all good, and you need a prenup. WH.lawyer. Just saying. I don't know how you all get down. But WH.lawyer, Whitaker and Hamer, they can help you out. So again, go to WH.lawyer, attorneys and counselors at law.
Maybe those never nudes never were nude, and you need some family law help.
Joining us on the Heister Automotive Group hotline, Tar Heel Illustrated, he is Andrew Jones. Andrew, what's going on, man?
What's going on, guys?
So Bill Belichick enjoyed his Super Bowl weekend. That happened to coincide with the second signing day. I get the second signing day ain't what it used to be. I get all that stuff. So he's back. He's refreshed. He was in a Super Bowl commercial. He had brunch with Roger Goodell. It's time to start talking about UNC football, right, Andrew? That's what happened in Chapel Hill yesterday, right?
Well, that last week
about the class.
Last week was their big signing day because they only signed 7 guys in December.
True.
And they signed, 18 more last week.
So what did Bill have to say yesterday?
Well, we didn't get Bill. We had Michael Lombardi. So
whoa! What's Bill?
I get where you're going with that.
What's he up to?
Because I was going to say Michael Lombardi apparently is also now Bill Belichick when it comes to talking to us. So he told us yesterday that he speaks for Bill.
Okay.
So what we have now for the first time in college athletics is we have a press secretary. So I guess he's the press secretary for President Belichick.
Am I being an ass? Like, by all means, we've known each other long enough. You can tell me if I'm being an ass about this.
Yeah.
Am I being an ass about this?
No, I think you're having fun with it, and I think that it's been teed up to have fun with, especially in your position. I have to be a little bit more delicate in my criticism.
Of course. Well, yeah, it's because you have to cover this kind of stuff. So in all your years of covering Carolina football, what the hell has the last couple of weeks been like? And I mean, if I understand my calendar correctly, I dust off the old calendar in my brain, this spring practice is right around the corner, right? So where are we right now that the Super Bowl is behind us and it should be focused on spring ball with Carolina football?
Well, they're gearing toward it. They probably have dates, but they're not telling us. Lombardi said that they want to make sure they have the dates for practices at times where the most high school recruits can come watch them practice because they want high school kids to watch the greatest coach of all time run a practice.
Okay.
So I think that they do have the dates. I think they know when it's going to begin, know when it's going to end, but there's a degree of gamesmanship that has been an overwhelming scent coming from the program since Belichick's press conference. I like to term it, especially in college football for years, and I think I've even told you guys this before. A lot of coaches think that they're always planning the D-Day invasion.
Yeah.
They can't give away an ounce of anything. I don't know what the point in not giving away stuff like this is at this time, but maybe they're just laying the foundation for the future where it's going to be sound bites and nothing else. Yesterday with Lombardi, while I appreciate the access, and I did learn some things, and I think just getting a vibe from the program is really important at this stage.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty much nothing but sound bites. So we're going to try to squeeze about 5 or 6 articles out of sound bites and see what we can do with it. I mean, you guys know where I'm coming from.
I know where you're coming from, man.
Well, yeah. I mean, I didn't watch the entire press conference, but did he eventually get into some player evaluations and
No.
what? No.
Are they worried about? Because
he was asked if the day one quarterback, if the TCU game quarterback is on campus, and he didn't even touch it.
Yeah,
interesting. So, in all seriousness, I'll put the sarcasm aside here for a second. I understand why coaches right now are acting the way that they are acting. I know that Matt Rule went viral 2 weeks ago or a week ago about not doing a traditional spring game because they don't want players to be evaluated when the next portal opens up and then they get taken. So, if the attitude is, if you're telling me that Mike Lombardi and the UNC coaching staff are not talking about the players that they've added because they don't want some other school to say, well, wait a minute, Bill Belichick, Mr. Diamond in the Rough, found this lacrosse player. What's his deal? Maybe we should take a look at him. I could see some gamesmanship there. Is that what's happening?
I don't know. I don't know the program enough yet.
Yeah.
And it's going to take some time, which is why yesterday was important, if for nothing else, just to get a feel for the vibe.
Okay.
And you know, you guys know when a new staff comes in, it takes a while to understand the vibe, especially in football, especially now since the operation is going to be so much bigger than it's ever been before.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked Lombardi a quote. We each got one question basically, and I asked him about recruiting and about the footprint, which for Mac Brown it was south of Atlanta to Washington D.C., and they did extend recently in toward Nashville, but they offered 33 kids from California in the month of January, which is wild because Mac and Larry Fedora and Butch Davis combined didn't offer 33 kids from California. So I asked about the footprint. I asked about the fact that they got 6 commitments from kids who were unranked and didn't have other attention. They flipped 2 kids that were Naval Academy commits. They flipped a 26 kid that was a West Point commit. They got a kid from Monroe, Louisiana that didn't get an offer from Louisiana Monroe. And so I asked, what was the process, the evaluation process? And he said that they trust their eyes.
And he quoted Red Auerbach.
Yeah, he quoted Auerbach. He quoted Bill Walsh, Al Davis.
Yeah.
I mean, he was flexing some muscles yesterday. It was interesting stuff.
Yeah,
he also let us.
Me and you at 50 plus, Andrew. Do you really think any of these current recruits, players, even the 26-year-olds, care about Al Davis, Bill Walsh, or Red Auerbach?
I haven't cared about Al Davis in 30 years.
Come on, man.
Yeah,
Listen.
When was the last time he strolled a sideline, acting like he owned the joint, which I guess he did?
I don't want to hijack your time. I'll ask this as gently as I can in a way that I hope can get a productive answer. Did Michael Lombardi yesterday sound like someone who was like building and had like a multi-year, like 3-4 year, 5-year plan? Did it sound like that to you?
Yes.
Yeah,
he did.
With me. That's what it sounded like to me.
I think that's a really good question and a really good observation I didn't think about yesterday. But a lot of people, the impression I'd gotten from even before Belichick was formally hired, and I guess he signed the contract about 9 minutes ago, but the impression was they're going to go all in and win this thing right away as soon as they can because of his age and because that's his wiring.
Sure.
But I sense that there's a layering process that's underway, which is partly why the unranked kids are part of the equation. They're looking at them a few years down the road, trusting their eyes, player development, building inside out. He told the story about who was it? Jerry Rice. And it was like a last piece to add. So he's telling us we're going to do linemen first. We're going to go out and spend on the skill a little bit later once we have the line in place. It's theoretically what he said. So I think he's telling Carolina fans, without saying it, give us some time. We probably aren't going to play in the ACC championship game next year, but maybe in 2 years, which I think is interesting. And it's probably a healthier approach because we've seen so many times in college football programs that flare up overnight crash just as quickly.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a foundational thing here, and maybe, and I hate to bring this up because people are going to ride it hard, but maybe in the back of a couple of minds there is a succession plan down the road, and they're trying to set that up.
I was just about to ask you, when you say us in that pronoun, who should we be including? And I think it is Stephen.
I know for a fact that was not discussed as part of the process, but I also know, told by someone who is very involved in the hiring process, that they understand that that's something that could come up down the road, that's obviously probably in the back of his mind, but it wasn't part of the deal to get him on board initially.
Okay. I will take,
you know what?
I will take that at face value.
Yeah, taking it at face value. Right now, it doesn't matter because Bill is the coach.
Yeah.
It's his program, probably for a few years.
Yeah.
He's got the 3 guaranteed, I guess. So that's the foundation on if he can win a championship and give Jordan another ring to wear at a gala, then that'll be great. That'll be great for him.
So my last question on football before we move to basketball. Okay, let's take this all at face value. We're talking multiple years. We're talking layers to building Carolina football. And I get it. I mean, we just saw what happened with Florida State, where they tried to build through the portal and it failed miserably. Totally get that. You can see the fickle nature.
Whoa. Failed miserably a year after it was a smashing success.
But to Andrew's point, it was a smashing success in what sense?
It was 12-0.
I get it, but I get all that stuff.
And their best player was a guy from Albany.
I get all that stuff. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that that's not what college football is right now, nor is it set up contractually to build right now. These guys, again, I can only speculate, but their background is based on, I know what your contracts are. I know I have you for X amount of years. I have you under the cap. That does not operate in college football. There are no contracts. There is no salary cap. There are no rules in this particular case when it comes to players and keeping them in your system. So I'm going to be really curious to see if that layering, as you say, or building it out as you move along with Carolina, if they understand that's the case.
We've talked to probably about 60%, maybe about 50% of the kids that have been offered, about 65, 70% of the kids that have committed since Belichick was hired. And a lot of the ones, if you've covered recruiting before, the higher rated a kid is, the less likely they're going to talk because they're prima donnas.
Right.
But a lot of these kids haven't gotten much attention from the media, so they're talking to us, and we're doing these massive Q&As with them. And one of the things that got them to commit to Carolina so quickly was Bill Belichick wanted to coach me. Of course, I'm going to commit. Sure. So I think part of the lure to keep some kids is the fact that Bill Belichick wants them and wants to coach them, and they're preaching player development. I don't know how many times Lombardi said player development yesterday. So part of the investment by them is also investment from these kids. They're banking on that. They're banking on having that kind of program. It'll be interesting to see if it works. My guess is a lot of these kids who are not courted by schools that aren't too far from them, that are at Carolina now, are going to stay there because they're not going to have many options to leave if they haven't proven anything on the field yet. Okay. So they're buying in to the buy-in, and then they're going to go get some other kids to the portal. They did offer 62 4-star kids in January, so they're going after highly regarded kids as well. But I think they want to supplement the roster with a lot of dudes who are going to buy in, give some time, and they figured that if they find one diamond in the rough out of every 10, that it works out that those guys will help them down the road. That's my read on it.
Okay.
So we'll see. We finally got some access. So we need more access to get a better feel for this and to be able to ask more questions. We need a situation where there's about 6 of us asking Lombardi questions for like a half hour. That'd be great.
We
could pepper
them. Cover recruiting though, Andrew. You know this. These are things that you know. National championships in college football specifically are not won by the state championship wrestler. They're not won by the guy who played the cross. They're not won even by Russell Wilson, the 3-star out of Richmond Collegiate who was too short and nobody wanted.
Yeah.
They're won by Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State. They are won by the biggest programs with the most money who pay the most money to their players.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Period. College football is a talent for talent game. That's it. That's it. Indiana was a cute story with all of their James Madison transfers this year. Cute story.
Yeah.
SMU to a lesser extent because they had a bunch of Miami transfers who, by the way, were 4 and 5 star players in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's only one way to do this in college football. Only one. And they're deluding themselves into thinking that the center from Holy Cross and they're going to patchwork together all of these players and they're going to remember the Titans or whatever Hoosiers or whatever underdog story they think they're writing. That's not how college football works.
I think there's a second.
Give them one free play, Andrew, and they should have taken it. They should have called Caleb Downs. Are you getting $2 million from Ohio State? I'll give you 4. That's your play. You go get all out ballers. That's what you do.
Yeah.
This idea that he presented and quoting all of these dead great American philosophers, like, man, this is not your way home.
Yeah.
Now, if you're sitting here telling me I have like you said, Andrew, if I have a 5-year plan that, I'm going to develop guys, I'm going to find some other guys, and then when the time is right, I'll go get Drake May's unborn brother or whatever, who's ever left on the Carolina family bloodlines out there. LT's, 78th son, whatever. Okay. That plan only works where there's multiple years. Yeah. College football, college basketball, which we can translate to transfer college basketball now. It's a year-to-year proposition. So people like Bill Belichick and Mike Lombardi, crazy smart, crazy successful with all of their plans. But I'll tell you what, Ovies and Giglio can tell you, you get fired on a Wednesday, you start up the next week. There ain't no next year. You're worrying about what's going on next week and what's going on right now.
Yeah.
And I think they're setting themselves, after this one press conference, I think they're setting themselves up to fail. And I don't think the people who are forking over the money are going to be super excited about this. I really don't.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other prong to the talent is that they're really pushing hard as culture. They're trying to change culture. So you go get the Holy Cross guy,
right?
Yeah, I understand. Look, I'm not defending. I'm just trying to explain because I've been trying to figure it out too. And what I see are a lot of culture guys. I see them bringing in a bunch of dudes who show up 20 minutes earlier than is early. If 15 minutes is early, these guys are showing up 35 minutes early. These guys are at the jugs machine for 45 minutes after practice. Mm-hmm. I think they're trying to create a culture where there's tremendous competitiveness from within, and there's just a bunch of dudes that have totally bought in to the team and the program, which they probably recognize and have been told. And Belichick was around the Washington program this past year a lot, that you need to have that to keep some of the other guys in line. That's what they think. I don't know if that's true or not. I think that the star players in college athletics now do what the star players want to do. I think we've reached that point very quickly. I think the culture guys are still great to have because they can help you on special teams. Maybe a guy's a fourth safety and he can help at a pinch if there's an injury in November against Wake Forest, that kind of thing. But you're not going to check the wins and loss columns very much with those guys. So I think this is also a deal where they believe that maybe there just wasn't that much in the program. They did lose a lot of good players, and they're just trying to overhaul, and they want their fingerprints on as much as they can put their fingerprints on. I think that's part of it too. I think there's a little territorial thing going on with this as well.
Yeah, it's coaching ego, as always. There's always coaching ego here. And that's true just about anywhere when you got a new regime that's coming in. Let's switch over to basketball. We'll close on this because we don't need to get into the X's and O's of Carolina basketball at this point. It is what it is. We know what they are. Clemson was a bad matchup. I mean, could they have competed a little bit better? Of course they could. But that's kind of why we're now having this conversation. And if you think people have opinions about Carolina football and the direction they should go in and what kind of culture they should have, if you think people got opinions about that, well, buddy, let's discuss how Carolina people have opinions about the future of basketball. And I feel like over the course of the next month, regardless of how Carolina plays the rest of the year, there is going to be a lot of family dynamics that spill out into the public that I'm sure that old timers would prefer not happen. Let's keep family business within the family. And I feel like we're about to have over the next month, a lot of family business aired out. Is that a proper observation about the current state of basketball?
Yeah, I think the thing I've sensed in the last 10 days, going back to the Duke game,
Yeah.
the 33-7 run in the first half, that there is sort of a line now, and you're either on the do everything you can to keep it the family line, or it's time to go, it's time to depart. And it's what's interesting is people are now bringing up the fact that Dean Smith pushed for Rick Majerus. So if it was good enough for Dean to go outside the family, then by God, we got to go outside the family now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I admire the keep it in the family thing. I admire finding another patriarch for the program. But the bottom line is that there are no apples on the apple tree. So you got to go find a new tree.
Yeah.
So if it's not Hubert Davis, they would be absolutely insane to hire anybody within the family to keep this thing going, because there's nobody out there. So one of the lines of thinking of someone I spoke to just the other day is, well, if they're going to keep it in the family, since there's no one to hire, then you can't get rid of Hubert. Because if we could have the utopian outlook, if they can win again and be Carolina again and do it with Hubert at the helm, he's the perfect guy because he has the pins on the lapel. He bleeds Carolina blue. And quite frankly, I think he loves Carolina basketball more than any person I've ever met.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's any question about that. And he's so embedded in it as well. It's so personal for him. But maybe that's part of the problem, because I get the impression that either Hubert is really good at sort of a seeming distant from what we all see, maybe too far into the bubble, or he doesn't want to acknowledge that there are some serious issues that must be addressed, because you can't ignore some of the things that are wrong.
Yeah.
And it's one thing to say, well, he's just not going to reveal anything in a press conference, but we see them try to do the same thing every game. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure what's happening between games where they try to tweak what's not working. I don't know how much he sees. I don't know if he's so deep in the bubble that he has no peripheral vision on the program and the team right now, and it will take till May or June before he understands where it went wrong. We saw the same thing 2 years ago. And it took until May, late April and May, when he went in the portal and got a couple of fiery dudes who kick over water coolers in practice to sort of change the culture for 12 months of that program. Mm-hmm. I don't know what he plans on doing now, because I think what we're seeing now is deeper than that. The problems are systematic, and he needs to change his philosophy. The fact that these kids tell us that when a play breaks down, they don't know what to do because they don't work on freelance is probably one of the most damning things anyone has said about a coach. And it's not just said this year. It was Leaky Black talked about it every week 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Very openly discussed it. So there are some issues that need to be fixed. And as they roll out the ball and play another game, it looks like there are more issues that are revealed, or that we just come to believe that, hey, this isn't just a bad stretch. This is just a really bad thing. This is a weakness in the program, and someone has to fix it. And if they don't believe Hubert's the guy to fix it, they're going to have to go find someone else who comes in and does something totally different, a la Belichick. And I think they're prepared. I think a lot of people are prepared to do that. The money is there to do it if they need to make it there, regardless of what just happened with the university system here.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. One quick wrinkle, because I know Giglio's got something here, but I did want to throw that wrinkle in there because it gets back to what we started the podcast discussing related to the athletic piece about, Carolina's backdoor contingency plans for realignment and everything else. And there's quotes from John Pryor, and John Pryor has his fingerprints all over Bill Belichick. But now we've got the UNC system head saying, hey, if you're outside of athletics, you cannot dictate what's going on here. And I'm curious how that plays into where they go next. Because if John Pryor's the Pied Piper when it comes to getting people to come around to a particular idea that's outside the box, and he's neutered, well, then that all falls on Bubba. And we all know that there are some people who aren't necessarily keen on Bubba's direction when it comes to college athletics.
Yeah, but they're going to need money to do what they want, what they need to do.
Yeah.
And Bubba has to then just speak with the money people, and Pryor will be in that conversation. I mean, it's not like Bubba can't pick up the phone and talk to him.
That's true.
And the chancellor was very, very proactive in the Belichick stuff. He wanted him to. The chancellor's a sports guy, he's a business guy. He knows you need to spend to make. You need to spend money to make money. And I've been told by a half dozen people that had a voice in the Belichick situation that they plan on doing the very same thing with basketball. I think I told you guys that in December, which part of that was getting a GM. That's just the first thing that came. I don't know. People are saying, well, Hubert's trying to save his own job. That was decided long ago, really in November, that was decided, regardless of whether Hubert's the head coach or not, they're going to have the same approach. Now, will he get a Belichick type? No. We're not going to joke about going out and hiring Pat Riley, but they have other coaches around the country that they would target immediately and back up the truck to, whoever they are. And I think they would very ambitiously go after them and make them a deal that they cannot refuse. However, I think more difficult than doing that would be getting rid of Hubert.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's going to be the greatest challenge, because that's an agreement people will make to cut the cord to the family thing. And that is such an important element to so many people, because Carolina has an elitist way about it, as you guys know, but nothing at Carolina is more elitist than Carolina basketball. And when they go on the road and they travel and the assistant coaches walk out, and they're all former players. I mean, they bleed Carolina blue, unlike any other program. Kentucky had no problem overhauling its roster in 1 year. Yeah. And the fans are excited. Louisville did the same thing. Alabama's greatest coach now isn't Bear Bryant, and they're okay with that. Carolina fans are having a very difficult time, and a lot of Carolina power people have a difficult time understanding you can still be Carolina with somebody different, with somebody outside the family. That's going to be the hardest thing for them to do.
Yeah. I was going to say, since we last talked, Andrew, I have defended Hubert all along up until the game at Cameron. Your team can't come out like that. Your team can't be uninterested in playing in that basketball game. And then to follow that up, I thought it was a good sign the way they played against Pitt. But then you go down to Clemson, you're actually winning, right?
And then you're zapped.
And then all of a sudden it was like, what happened?
Yeah.
That it's 23-21. Then all of a sudden the game was a blowout.
Yeah.
And now that's two of your last three performances where your group is not competitive. And those are the kind of moments that are going to push whoever ultimately makes the decision towards replacing Hubert Davis. You cannot have performances like that. Andrew, you remember covering Carl Torbush and the way that the players responded to just the rumor of, hey, we're going to get rid of this guy. Yeah. Oh, really? Well, we're going to beat Duke and State, Yeah. Like, I don't see any, and I get it. That was 25 years ago with Torbush, right? I get it. But
the Mike O'Kane Bowl.
Yeah, but you don't see any of that with this group of Carolina players. Say what you want about Kevin last year and whatever those players' motivations were. I don't think they were trying to save Kevin's job. I think they just started playing better. But I don't see any kind of fight out of this Carolina group when maybe they're not understanding what the situation is, and maybe they don't care, because based on their effort, they don't care. And I know you talk about that standard at Carolina, and you talk about that family and how much it does mean to Hubert. I remember with Sidney Lowe, I remember how difficult it was for him to know as much about basketball as he does and to have the players not listen to you. It's like the most infuriating thing on the planet, especially for players like Sid, won a national championship. Hubert obviously has been part of a lot of success at Carolina. It crushes them. It crushes them because you have this knowledge, but you're obviously not making a connection. And that's where the failure is for Hubert this year. But you just can't have those two games the way that they've been played,
I covered a lot of that time with Sidney as well, and I remember the exasperation he would express at times about how he just couldn't get. He would push a button and it wouldn't go down. It was stiff. It would stuck. Yeah, the thing about, I hear you about Duke. Duke had a 33-7 run over like an 8.5 minute span. Clemson had a 28-8 run in a 9-minute span. Those two runs are 61-15.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is, I said this after the Pitt game 2 weeks ago when they lost at Pitt. Pitt closed them out 14-2. I said in our podcast afterwards, I said, I wonder if we talk so much about the end game runouts, and Hubert was dismissing it, saying, well, we're losing the games more earlier because we're in those situations. And I said, okay, there's a lot to that. Maybe those runouts are going to happen sooner. If this team is heading the wrong direction, the runouts happen sooner. Well, Duke and Clemson gave that to us. Now they're Duke and Clemson. But I don't see a lot of other teams giving up 33-7 and 28-8 runs to those guys. Teams that have a far less talent should play with shouldn't have the same pride on the front of the jersey that North Carolina has. What it suggests is this. Adam Smith and I were asking questions in the presser the other night. Adam asked Hubert if the team doesn't have any fight anymore. And I followed up. Hubert rejected the notion. I followed up by asking him if the team's broken. And he kind of went in a different direction. So we asked some of the players. RJ Davis said that the 28-8 run was a low point. I think that they thought they were able to dismiss Duke as being Duke. That's just going to happen. Duke was ready to play. Carolina didn't play well. But it's different to get run out by Clemson, regardless of the fact that Clemson's a much better team. Seth Trimble, same thing. Seth Trimble, I think, is this close to calling some guys out.
Yes.
Because what he said was so close. You could see his mind working where he's got names dancing through his mind, but he's not going to say them. I think I know who some of the names are. I don't want to go there now. Mm-hmm. I'll let Seth do that because I think that Seth's real close. If they go get run out at Syracuse this weekend, which I think is very possible, and we're talking to Seth outside the locker room.
They just got their ass beat by Miami.
It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, guys.
Come on. Miami just beat him.
He's right, though. Boston College came in there.
Carolina's last two wins are Boston College at home in overtime and Pitt by a point when Carolina tried to give it away, missing two front ends and 1-on-1s in the last 19 seconds.
Andrew, you got NC State on the menu.
Guys, this is North Carolina. They are getting worse fast.
Yeah, but you can always count on it.
Who's going to guard Eddie Lampkin? Who's going to guard J.J. Starling? They've got length and they can get hot from three. We go back to Hubert. The other night, Clemson's raining threes and he goes zone.
Yeah.
See, there are some problems that Hubert knows 1,000 times more about basketball than I'll ever know, and that any of us will ever know. But I think that he's in this whirlwind in the middle of the season where it's just so difficult to find the right buttons to push. And some of the things he's done have backfired. What's happened with Ian Jackson? Well, I trace Ian Jackson's sudden slide to Hubert moving him to the 4 when he went small.
Mm-hmm.
And he sticks him over in the corner and suddenly Ian's not slashing and they don't run plays for him. There's nothing. The 4 in the current offense is just a body out there essentially.
Yeah.
And now Ian's a mess. He hasn't scored a field goal in the first half of the last 3 games. No field goals in the last 2 games.
Yeah.
He almost went scoreless, but Hubert put him in down 24 the minute and a half there, and he hit a couple free throws. He's their best scorer. And it's like he's a complete mess now.
Yeah.
So how did that happen? Is that Hubert says it's freshmen and we don't evaluate guys just on if they're scoring other things. Well, Ian's not out there to do the dirty work to help you win. He's out there to put the ball in the basket.
He's here to get you buckets. And I think that's another.
And he's not doing that.
Yeah.
He's not doing that. Well. And the irony in all this is that in the last 7 games during this stretch, RJ Davis has played, as far as offensive efficiency goes, his best basketball of the season. And it's not reflective. It reflected at all in the performance of the team.
Andrew Jones, Tar Heel Illustrated. Check him out. Fantastic work as always. Never a dull moment in Chapel Hill these days. They are providing content.
And I think it's going to get less dull.
Yeah. I guess the Orioles will have to wait. I know that spring training's right around the corner.
Pitchers and catchers soon.
I know, but it's going to have to wait, Andrew. There's a lot more stuff going on.
Got a lot to get into.
When it comes to the Tar Heels.
I may not be covering the NCAA tournament, but I may be covering something, right?
All right, man. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Big thanks to our friends at O2 Fitness. Check them out online at o2fitnessclubs.com. You know what actually brings couples together? You know what would be a good date? A workout.
Making good choices together.
And working out is one of those things.
Yeah.
It is more than just a gym. As we mentioned, great locations. That matters when it comes to a gym. Great equipment.
Very convenient.
Great staff. And of course, it goes beyond just the workouts themselves. You've got Renew Physiotherapy. You have Loop Nutrition to help you make those good choices. And look, sometimes you got to admit, you're older. Things don't bounce back like they used to. You don't have that same kind of energy. O2 understands that. That's why they have partnered with Thrive. Go to livethrive.co right now. Convenient quality care designed for you. We're talking clear guidance from board-certified doctors, no insurance required, free and discreet shipping on products U.S.-based pharmacies are providing, and of course, an easy online process. Telehealth is where it's at right now. I understand that's where things are going, but you're going to get more than from thems. That's why you go to livethrive.co, a partner of O2 Fitness. So go check them out. Big thanks to our friends over at Happy and Hale. Speaking of making good decisions, they partnered with Loop Nutrition to make sure that you are making those great meal decisions. And we're going to help you make those decisions with a promo code, Joe.
Promo codes are our friend. They are our specialty, OG25. Download that app, punch it in where it says promo code, save 25% on your first order.
Let's take a break. Let's take a hockey break. Brought to you by Happy and Hill.
Now, we got the Four Nations tournament that is starting up. We have discussed how we are Team Finland.
Yes.
For the Four Nations Cup. And while we present to you Happy and Hale, we give you a hockey break. We're also going to give you Joe Giglio isms translated to Finnish. So we were just talking to Andrew. We talked about what, Joe? College athletics being a year-to-year proposition.
It's a year-to-year proposition.
Yliopiston yleisurheilu on vuosittainen ehdotus.
Can you say that?
No.
Yliopiston yleisurheilu on vuosittainen ehdotus.
If that doesn't give you an appreciation of, 18-year-old Sebastian Aho coming over here and not understanding English and being able to, work his way around the language that he has, I don't really know what does. Like, none of that sounded repeatable to me.
But here's what I need.
Learnable.
Here's what I need for you to memorize once they get back, because I want you to impress Sebastian Aho and Mikko Rantanen and the crew. Laita se korvasi.
Laita se korvaasi.
Put it in your ear.
Ooh.
So that's what you have to learn. Well, actually, I should say put it in their ear. So hold on a second. Hold on. This is put it. There's a difference here. Here we go. Laita se Hayden Korvansa. So that's what you say. Hey, man, you see the Rangers? You see the Rangers there, Sebastian?
Laita se korvaasi.
That's what you do.
That's going to go so well.
Anyway, there is your Finnish translation, your Finnish Giglioism of the day. We'll see what happens tomorrow. Big thanks to our friends at Roback. Check them out online at roback.com. Use that promo code OG20 to save 20% off your order. And of course, our friends at Hometown Realty. MyHTR.com is the website. Buy and sell with confidence. A lot of new construction going up right now. A lot of builders have incentives. You won't know what those incentives are unless you know the right people to ask those questions. That's where our friends at MyHTR.com will help you out. We got basketball tonight. Duke's back in action. They're hosting Cal. NC State has Louisville in the house, which I don't know about you, man. I guess the vibe that I'm getting out of Louisville at the arena would be like wistful looks from NC State fans to the other red Adidas team that has turned things around relatively quick with a new coach
overnight,
right? And
or was it the coach or the money, or was it both?
I mean, it's probably a combination. It's probably a combination of both, right? Exactly. It's a year-to-year proposition, Joe. It's a year-to-year proposition.
Duke minus 23.5 tonight.
Yeah, that sounds
after
right.
The loss, kind of feels like we're going to see the hammer job tonight.
All I know is that court is going to be pristine.
Yeah.
Cameron's going to show you how to keep a dry court, okay? That's what I know tonight. The Gatorade towels are getting the work this evening. The work.
It's a pretty starchy number for a random midweek game, by the way.
I mean,
Cal's not terrible. I mean, they're literally 12-12.
I think it's the bounce back off after the Clemson loss. That's probably what it is. But yeah, we talked about this with Patrick a little bit yesterday as it relates to the ACC, and folks are starting to get into freak out mode over the bubble, right?
Sure.
So, I think Wake Forest is now the latest fan base that's getting a little annoyed at how Carolina continues to get. And let me explain something why Carolina continues to be discussed as an NCAA tournament team. And that comes at the expense of other teams. The first is the obvious one, and it ties to the beginning of this podcast. Carolina is the brand. Carolina is the interesting talking point. And there's also some debate as to whether or not Carolina would get the benefit of the doubt because of the brand. I mean, I was listening to the Field of 68 podcast the other day, and I forgot which of the hosts it was, that straight up was saying, are you telling me at the very least they won't put Carolina in Dayton because it's Carolina?
We went through this 2 years ago. They did not get any kind of benefit of the doubt.
They did not, but that's the thing. That's what gets the people going, so to speak.
Sure.
Right? But I do think what's interesting about this is if you're going to have a conversation around Carolina, it does make you wonder, well, if we're still, is it a media talking point or is it a legitimate thought that Carolina still has a chance to make in the NCAA tournament at the expense of, say, Wake Forest? Because let's say you're going to put Carolina in, but you also believe that the ACC is not a multi-bid league, like more than 4. So to put Carolina in, that means that you're going to keep Stanford, you're going to keep Wake Forest, you're going to keep SMU out of the NCAA tournament. That's essentially what you're saying, given where we are right now with these teams. And Wake Forest is probably the most interesting one because I go to our friend Chris over at Daggone Box Scores and his wall of wob.
Okay.
Macaroni in a pot.
Which has been added to the actual sheets this year, too. It's important to note that.
Wins above the bubble. And when you're looking at wins above the bubble, Wake Forest is 2.37. That's good for 4th in the ACC right now. They're in the green, whereas North Carolina is decidedly mid. They're in that weird shade of not quite green, not quite red. Okay, more orangey than anything else. But even then, SMU still has a better wins above the bubble at this point. So I'm really, I guess the issue with Wake Forest is the issue that the ACC is unfortunately having, in that they're really not getting good wins within conference. So when Wake Forest beats an ACC squad like Pitt's also kind of wilted down the stretch here. That's not really helping them. So what are their best wins in the league right now? Is it the Pitt game? Is it the North Carolina win? North Carolina's a Ken Palm 45 right now. Outside the league, their best win is obvious. It's Michigan.
Yeah, I was going to say their biggest problem is they only play Louisville and Clemson once each, so they don't get a chance to see them again.
Yeah.
And they lost their first matchups with them. I think it's pretty clear that Wake Forest needs to beat SMU, and then once they'll get another crack at Duke up in Durham.
Mm-hmm.
I like the way that they match up with Duke. I do. It's going to be a tough task to win up there. Now, then they're going to find themselves in the same situation they've been in the last few years. They're going to get to the ACC tournament. Remember, they went up to Brooklyn and lost their first game.
Yeah.
And that kept them, and combine that with Virginia Tech being a surprise winner of the tournament, they were out. Last year, they won their first game, but lost the next one. And then State becomes a surprise winner, which really doesn't help their cause to become a team that gets off the bubble. So that's kind of what's been working against them, Wake Forest. And we'll talk to Steve Forbes next week. So we'll shed some more light on this because they'll be up in Raleigh next weekend. But that SMU game is fixing to be a super important one for them because SMU with another win last night too.
So one other leftover from that Duke Clemson game, we missed this, which, it is what it is. Sometimes some things fall through the cracks, if you will. But I thought it was pretty amusing that the Russian guy that everybody's been excited about, including you, Victor Lock-in,
does not have a Russian accent. I'm very disappointed.
I know you're very disappointed about this. But he was asked, if somebody told you before the season you'd beat Kentucky, Duke, and North Carolina, what would you think?
If somebody would have told you at the beginning of the season that you'd beat Kentucky, Duke, and North Carolina in the same season, what would you guys think of that?
We're blue bloods too now.
I love that.
Just be Clemson.
I love that. I love that.
It's that simple. We got the belt now. It's ours.
One other ACC note. I think it's so funny that
Connecticut's over here winning national titles and nobody wants to give them blue blood status. No. But the Ruskies like, hey man,
that's us. That's what we do.
You come and beat me and then we'll talk.
So do you see where SMU fans were ripping on Nico Harrison with the Dallas Mavericks?
Oh no.
Yeah. So apparently this happened last night. So it's that bad in Dallas around Luka, where even in an SMU ACC basketball game, we're getting the fire Nico Harrison thing.
That's not good.
I don't know. Maybe that comes up in the hot and the cold. But in the meantime, what you need to do is contact our friends at Keller Williams, the Donnelly team, trianglencommercial.com. Call them directly at 919-616-8681.
Yeah, Brian Donnelly, Julie Donnelly. Give them a call. 919-616-8681. Maybe you need a bigger office space. Maybe you need a better location. These are all things they can help you with and your business. TriangleNCCommercial.com.
I am once again reminded that we spend all this time talking about Carolina basketball and it not being very good right now in the bad place. We've talked about NC State. Actually, the less said about NC State, probably the better. And then I'm reminded, whoa. If you want the vibes, if you want State Carolina at a high level, well, folks, it's going to provide this weekend because we got State and Carolina on the women's basketball court. Mitch Northam joining us, WUNC-FM, USA Today, and of course, OGTriangleMedia.com. Mitch, what's going on?
Not much. Women's basketball doing pretty good in the Triangle. Looked at ESPN's bracketology this morning, and still the same. All three schools hosting in the first weekend, which would be a lot of fun.
That would be fun. We spent a lot of time talking about NC State. Sanaya Rivers has been the story for the Wolfpack this year, but I get the sense, because you know how NC State is. When NC State's good, it kind of like takes all the air out of the room. But like quietly, like Courtney Bangart and Carolina also pretty darn good. So what is this matchup looking like this weekend?
Yeah, best start to a season in 11 years for North Carolina. So best of the Courtney Bangart era. Yeah, it's going to be pretty tightly contested. I think both of these teams are pretty even. I think Carolina is better and more consistent on defense, but they don't have a scorer like Isaiah James who can just turn it on whenever she wants and fill up the stat sheet with 30 points. Or a versatile player like Sanaya Rivers, who has that potential to turn it on too. Saying that, I think, historically in this rivalry, the home team usually wins, at least in this Courtney Banghart-Westmore era. Courtney has yet to win in Reynolds Coliseum, but this game is in Carmichael, where she's 4-1 against Westmore. So I think I picked this game on our Making Money with Mitch segment on the Women's Basketball Podcast this week. I think NC State is actually favored by 1.5. I like the Tar Heels to cover.
With NC State, Mitch, I'm reminded, and help me out here because my brain, I know the conference went to a shorter conference schedule, then they expanded it. So explain to me again why these teams don't play a home and home. Do any teams play a home and home in women's basketball, or is it all a random computer spits it out and there are no rivalries that are protected? Or is it Duke and Carolina that gets a home and home?
So it used to be before the addition of the historic Atlantic Coast programs, Stanford, Cal, and SMU. It used to be in basically the previous, as long as I've been covering women's basketball here, so at least since 2019, there was a pod system where basically you played, I think it was 5 teams twice. So in one pod was Duke, Carolina, NC State, Virginia, and Virginia Tech. And I personally think, and Kenny Brooks also said this, he was the coach of Virginia Tech, now at Kentucky, after getting a big payday from the SEC. I think that helped really spark a lot of women's basketball fandom in this area because you had Virginia Tech, NC State, Carolina, and then Duke at times, once Kara got it right, all humming at a really high level. So all of those teams playing twice in one season really created a lot of juice for women's basketball. Here in the Triangle, up in Virginia, in the ACC, I feel like. Now you bring those teams in, those 3 teams, Stanford, Cal, and SMU, and the way that they rejiggered the conference schedule is that everybody plays each other once, and then you have one protected rival that you play twice. And for Carolina, that's Duke. Now, I would argue that in women's basketball, it's more like football, where the real rivalry for Carolina is NC State. But the ACC schedule makers did not agree with me.
Here's how old my brain is, just so you know, because you said 2019. They went from 2006 through 2011, where they only played 14 conference games. Because at the time, the men were expanding their conference schedule. And the women were like, nah, we'll play fewer. No big deal.
Yeah.
So it has been 16 since 12, and then 12 through. Then they went up to 18 the year you mentioned that you got here. So it's such a weird setup to me. I just remember, Debbie Yao obviously fighting tooth and nail to make sure that the program that her sister built would play their rivals home every year. Obviously, that's not the case any longer. But I just thought it was interesting that a one-off this year. And to your point, Carolina, it has been a home team series.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like just sort of going back in history, like when I was working on my book that'll be out at some point this year, like Carolina and NC State, they're each other's most common opponent in women's basketball. So they've played each other more than anyone else, more than Duke, more than Wake Forest, which is State's protected rival, which is basically just a circle win 2 times a year. So good for Westmore. It's a bummer that they're not going to play twice.
All right, let's switch over to the WNBA, where I guess it's Hornets week on the podcast.
Yes, we got a lot of Charlotte. We have our finger on the pulse of Charlotte hoops.
We certainly do. We certainly do. Lost in all the Mark Williams drama. I know that you confirmed this, but it looks like Charlotte ownership is trying to get back in with the WNBA, revive the sting. The buzz was back. Now we want to bring the sting back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this started kind of bubbling up like last week or the week before. There was a couple stories floated around about, a bid trying to be birthed for Charlotte for the WNBA. And I had been trying to poke around on this for probably the past year or two as these WNBA expansion stories have come about.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't find really anything else about it. Like there was really no organized group, it seemed to me, that was trying to do this. So fast forward now, the Hornets have this new ownership group. Gabe Plockton is a part of that. Rick Schnall is the other guy. These are hedge fund and private equity dudes, deep pockets, lots of money. They are basically backing this bid that has been launched by this local businesswoman. Her name is Erica Berman. And I don't know a whole lot about Erica Berman or her family, the Berman family, which is kind of what their bid group has been labeled as. So Don Berman is the executive chairman of this company, Cardworks, which is a credit and payments company in New York. He's donated millions of dollars to Davidson College in the past, and they were also big investors in this 3-on-3 league, Unraveled. So they're launching this bid. They submitted the paperwork and everything by the deadline that the WNBA set. It was January 30th. And the Hornets ownership group is backing them and supporting them. A team spokesperson confirmed to me earlier this week. So I think that's a big deal because before, I think as recently as last summer, the Charlotte Observer interviewed, a high-ranking member of the Hornets. And at the time, they were like, we're not really interested in a WNBA team. So it's a change of tune. And I think
what happens.
Wow. Did someone play in the WNBA last year and spark attendance and viewership and break a bunch of records?
And maybe people who like money want more money?
Interesting.
Money talks,
yeah.
As always. Money talks as always.
So
have empty dates in the summer?
What? Crazy.
Yeah.
Mitch Northam, Women's College Basketball Podcast, which you can watch on this YouTube channel. Go check it out. Of course, WUNC-FM and USA Today. Mitch, as always, we appreciate it. We'll talk to you later.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Big thanks to our friends at Breeze Through. Check them out online at breezethrough.com. Coffee, gas, beer caves. While you're pumping gas, pull up the Google Maps and give it 5 stars. That's what I want.
Is it OG Breeze Through on the Google Maps, or does it have another name?
No. I think it just says Breeze Through on there.
We're not big enough to influence Google Maps that way.
Not yet. I don't think we have that kind of influence.
Okay. We'll get on it.
I don't know. Maybe we can actually ask our people to change the location. Like, hey, by the way, let me petition that this is a new name. OG Breeze Through.
Why not?
Just a thought, right? While you also give it 5 stars, because that's what we're doing. We're doing 5-star gas stations, baby.
Yeah. I'll be there tonight. I'm headed over to the arena tonight.
You are a sicko.
Yeah.
Speaking,
there might be some information available.
I see.
Tonight.
I see. Okay. Interesting. Speaking of information, I'm going to give you some inside information when it comes to Valentine's Day. We have all sorts of suggestions here. May I suggest you go to the butcher's market where they're going to make it dead simple for you. They actually have meals they'll put together for you. You just go online, hit a few clicks, it'll be available for you, and you'll be good to go for Valentine's Day.
Ooh.
So go to thebutchersmarket.com.
Sounds easy.
Now, if you just want to be a little adventurous, because who doesn't need a little adventure when it comes to Valentine's Day? You just go, walk around.
See, I get overwhelmed by those options.
That's fair. In the meantime, just go to the Butcher's Market and make sure that you get what you need for Valentine's Day. And of course, what says love like new plumbing? What says love like I got that HVAC situation under control? That's why you contact our friends at 1-800-PLUMBER&AIR. The website is the name, 1-800-PLUMBER. So go check them out. Upfront pricing, super easy to schedule, and they bring you the hot and the cold.
You know, something I had not thought of, Joe, if your toilet is leaking and then you're sitting there going, well, I need to get this toilet fixed. And it's also like that time of the year where you're like, hey, you know, also my air conditioner, are we sure this thing is like up to speed? Because while I don't need it right now, you best be sure I'm going to once this heat cranks back on, right? So these are all things that our friends at 1-800-PLUMBER&AIR can do. It's a one-stop shop. What a brilliant idea our friend Hayes Lancaster had. So check him out, 1-800-PLUMBER.com.
The hot, that would be Danny Hurley. Speaking of Blue Bloods, why is he hot all the dang time?
Would you like the context to this one?
So what? They go to Creighton. He's never won at Creighton.
It's not that he's never won there. It was they had $1 beer night at Creighton, and they had this thing all loaded up and set up against him.
Okay.
And plus, yes, he has lost there. He has lost there a lot. They're one of those programs that get them.
Okay. So he's walking past some of the crowd and he's pointing his fingers. I got the 2 rings.
2 rings.
Okay.
2 rings. Did I send you the press conference too?
No, you did not send me the press conference.
So the press conference, he says, I just wish there were more people there. And there was a lot of chatter on my text threads groups today about, man, what an asshole Danny Hurley is. And I'm like, guys, that is Jersey. Like, that's who he is. I wrote this for OG Triangle fans recently. Like, you really think Carolina's going to hire the Jerseyest of Jersey guys?
No,
sir.
No.
They would not know what to do.
You think that Danny Hurley is going to put up with some old timer in the Smith Center to tell you about, well, you know, Dean Smith would have done it like this. Yeah, Danny Hurley's not going to.
Have you thought about going to a triangle in 2 potentially?
Yeah, I'm sure that's exactly what Danny Hurley wants to hear when he's coaching basketball. And our cold of the day.
Our cold is January, February Izzo. Tom Izzo. I don't know if you know this, but he is tied for the career record with Bob Knight.
Okay.
For Big Ten conference wins.
Okay.
And he has been stuck on this number. And conveniently enough, they got to play Indiana last night. And Michigan State hosts Indiana. It was already fired their coach, right? Or their coach is a lamed up coach, step down at the end of the year. Indiana's been not very good this year. They host Indiana as a 12-point favorite. They lose. So he does not get to eclipse Knight against Knight's program. The Spartans have lost 3 of their last 4.
It's okay. He did that thing in March one time, so he's forever March.
A bunch of times, but
I know. It's been a hot minute, though.
Yes.
But he's forever March. Don't worry about it. All right, a little NFL potpourri, if you will. The New Heights podcast dropped. Everybody was waiting to see what the Kelsey brothers had to say about this Super Bowl. I mean, think about it. You got Jason Kelsey. He's won the Super Bowl with the Eagles. Remember, he dressed up as a mummer.
Yeah, he's Johnny Eagles.
He's some sort of representation of Philadelphia right now. Cool.
Sure.
Whatever. It's all good. But then his brother, right? He's trying to win this Super Bowl. What do they have to say?
Just wasn't our day. Couldn't find a lick of momentum. I'm kicking myself for some of the tiny, tiny decisions I made on the field. I wasn't the best leader that I could be in motivating my guys and keeping my guys, calm, cool, collected. And I put a lot of that on myself as, the guy that's been in the building for 12 years and seen a lot of football and actually seeing a situation just like this in the Super Bowl. It's a tough pill to swallow. It's a hard reality, man. I love my teammates. I love my coaches, Chiefs Kingdom. I'm sorry for how it ended. I have a beautiful life, man. I have loved ones I have the most amazing family in the world that supports me in everything that I do. And they were all there, cheering me on and hoping for the best on Sunday, man. I wish things would have went different. I wish I would have made better decisions early on and helped my guy Pat out and helped my team, find that momentum or that confidence. But, I just have to tip my hat to the Eagles.
I know this sucks to talk about. I've been here. It wasn't all negative for the Chiefs. You broke the most catches in Super Bowl history. I know that you don't probably care that much about it right now because of the way the game went. You have so many records at this point that this is kind of just another one. But at the end of the day, it's just another thing that cements you as one of the best players ever to play in the NFL. Past Jerry Rice, Gronkowski, Andre Reed.
That's the last thing that I care about right now.
I know, but you will, and it's dope. Just here to tell you, dope record. As are all your other records.
Thanks, brother.
The only record I get is that he kept going on the field. He's out there again.
They're adorable.
Is it bad that I had more emotion and passion about the Chiefs losing than Travis Kelce did?
I think that's just his MO.
Okay.
This is how he is.
I'm just curious. I wish he would pull a Mark Cuban and reach out to the fans and be like, "Hey, what'd you lose, Giglio? Oh, okay. Here, let me Venmo you the money that you lost and get over it and get out of my face, please."
I think the at issue here is I think we have hit Kelce over.
No, but he looked exhausted to me. He just looked like that explanation of man, I wish, and it was it was, again, reading the phone book. It was like a Jones Angel. What am I supposed to say here?
Yeah, I mean, what is he supposed to say there? I mean, their defense got run over.
Have you seen the clips of him trying to block?
It's not great. Not great. Yeah.
It's not good.
It's not good. It's not good. But I mean, I don't know. I think the part of the issue is that we are kind of hitting a little bit of a Kelce, if we haven't hit it already, a Kelce's oversaturation point. Did you know they have their own cereal right now?
No,
it's this Kelce Brothers mix. It is Cinnamon Toast Crunch, Reese's Puffs, Golden Grams, I think. It's a whole bunch of cereals put together. It's an abomination, but my kids actually like it.
Hey, I'm all for the success that they're having with their podcast. I appreciate that he actually did talk about this on their podcast. I do. Because you get a little bit more clear-minded than the post-game mumble. Yeah, hey, we just lost the Super Bowl. Leave me alone kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
But I do find it interesting that other people have more passionate responses to their ineptitude than that.
Yeah. Elsewhere, the Cam Newton locker room full of losers thing has carried on to another day because now you have all those former Panthers who were pretty active on social media deciding that, hey, man, don't call us losers, and all this contextualizing of how good that team was or was not. Charles Johnson's probably been the most vocal. Damn, shaking my head. Losers is a crazy word. I had my best season. I have multiple Cam stories. If we're trying to take it there, okay. Captain Munnerlyn, he chimes in. For him to say that we was losers was a slap in the face. This was a team who was 2 years removed from playing in the NFC divisional round against Arizona. We lost a couple of pieces. We had checked down Jimmy Clausen at quarterback. We had a bad year. For him to say losers was crazy. Jordan Gross, he chimes in. There were iconic Panthers players when Cam got there. You'd be foolish to say that he wasn't a gigantic addition to the success of the organization when he arrived. Also, when Ron Rivera arrived. So there's pretty damn good arguments that Rivera had a lot to do with what was going on as well. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Munnerlyn continued at one point. So the stuff that he's saying, he just wants to still be relevant. He don't have to do all that to be relevant. You're freaking Cam Newton, bro. You changed a franchise. You're probably one of the biggest players that's ever played here at the quarterback position for sure. So you don't have to go out and do all this other stuff. So there is that element that's out there. Here's where I would take the story. And I think this is the thing that's at issue, right? I have wondered out loud why the Carolina Panthers don't do more to put their arms around Cam. Okay. And there was an argument earlier in the year about, well, Cam hasn't technically retired, so therefore we're not going to do some stuff to kind of memorialize Cam Newton's impact with the Carolina Panthers. which I called bullshit. And Cam went on his podcast and he said, well, I'm never retiring. I'm never actually putting in the paperwork. It's a formality. And I agree with Cam in that regard. But I think the Panthers were trying to provide some level of cover, like some kind of distraction, like, oh no, it's this reason, whatever. That's why we don't do this stuff around Cam. There's no like pictures of Cam everywhere. I mean, remember the clip that made the rounds where his kid asks him, why aren't there any references to you here? Well, I think we're kind of finding out why there's no real references to Cam Newton in the building, because Cam has separated himself from the Panthers even more so. And it's this really weird kind of dynamic at play right now where Cam still wants to make it about Cam, but also still want the love from the Panthers. Well, it's a two-way street. I'm not saying Cam can't speak objectively about the Carolina Panthers. Steve Smith speaks objectively about the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah.
All right.
And does their preseason games.
And he is absolutely welcomed into the fold.
Yeah.
All right. So those two things can be true at once. But I think what's happening here is that Cam, we're finding out, is doing some things and saying some things that are preventing the Panthers from fully putting their arms around him. And I can tell you definitively that as we are approaching the 10-year anniversary of that season and the Super Bowl run, Cam's part of that, but you're really not going to get the warm fuzzies if you're also doing media appearances with Travis Hunter and talking about by the way, one other quick note about this before we move on, which I thought was fascinating. That Travis Hunter podcast through Overtime, that was released on February 7th. It did not resonate until
the clip was sent out?
No, the clip's been floating out there since February 7th. So that clip was just out in the ether.
Okay.
And it wasn't until, I guess the algorithm must have fed it to Steve Smith one day. Like, can you imagine? This is where I was getting at.
Yeah, I didn't see it until
yesterday.
2 days ago.
2 days ago. And we talked about it yesterday. Can you imagine Steve Smith's probably like in the bathroom, scrolling his phone, right? I mean, this is how I envision this.
Yeah.
Because you know how it is with you. Like, you get stuff fed to you on your Facebook and your Instagram algorithm, right?
Yeah.
And I can just have this Smitty's taking something else that rhymes, and he's just scrolling on his phone and he sees that. And it's like,
you called us what?
Like, can I not just do this in peace? And I got to see this.
Yeah.
See, I'd probably be mad too if I was Steve Smith. Man.
Well, I think the thing you got to remember about too with Cam is these are the things he's saying publicly.
Yes.
One can only guess what he's saying behind closed doors. And you might think, oh, it'll never get back to whoever, but it always does.
It always does. I mean, it's going to end up as a clip, for heaven's sake. And the algorithm will eventually get to it, as we found out with this clip. Oh, Cam. All right, let's get out of here with some Hey Joe. Let's go to the OG sports phone, shall we?
919-444-2211. Call the OG sports phone and curse or don't.
Actually, play this clip. I got a man on the street OG sports phone from Michael. It was yesterday.
Okay.
It might have been Monday.
All right.
Monday. I always like it when we get stopped on the street and someone's like, ah!
Sure.
And he put something on Twitter. He's like, I was going to give you an OG sports phone. I was like, hey, man.
Well, what was it?
All are welcome. He liked my theatrics on Monday.
When you were mad.
Well, I did a bit there. That was...
You were acting?
No, the first part where I was...
Oh, I know. Yeah, they're going
acting like I didn't realize that there would be a podcast the day after the Super Bowl.
What? Shocker.
No one told me.
I still think you should contemplate what life would be like if you didn't.
I get that, but the problem is, did you see how good Alabama looked last night? See, that's what kills you. Here's that hope that kills you.
What you should do is you should swap that out and go to Nature's Relief, take a sipper, and watch basketball that way. You might enjoy it a little bit more.
I probably would.
So go to Nature's Relief, nature'sreliefhempstore.com.
Chillers. Get a chiller.
LEAF hempstore.com. All right, this is from a 540 number.
Calling from the Nogue. Ovies talking about Tony Bennett to just go away. I mean, he was at a UVA game. It wasn't like he was at first take or whatever, some show. He was saying what he said. Yeah, you're probably right. It's bullshit, but it wasn't like he was at some kind of network, bullshit or whatever. But anyway, but you brought up Roy and all the gigs, the photos. It reminded me of my cat that I had to put down in 2023. Couldn't come up with a name, so I just named her Gato. And I buried her. And people that know me know that I think religion is horseshit, and I'm not going to get into that, but I go up and talk to her every day. Or not, I used to. It's like every week now, but against my, I don't know. I got another cat, but I didn't name him proper. His name's Roddy. Go Canes.
That we covered the entire spectrum there.
That was a lot.
Yeah.
That was a lot, man.
I understand his point, though. What he was saying about Bennett.
Sure.
Like, yeah, I mean, he probably wasn't even seeking the interview. It was probably, oh, yeah, I'll talk to you guys after. Somebody probably asked him, and he said what he said. Good enough. Fair enough. Get it.
That's fine. I can still feel that it's ridiculous. I'm more concerned
there's
about
a part of
the
me
feelings of the cats. I get that part.
There's a part of me that wishes I could still defend my bracket luck is real. Virginia had the easiest path in the history of ever to win a national championship. Like, I wish I could just continue that argument forever.
Yeah.
And it pains me sometimes to think about that game and think about that being the end for Tony Bennett, and that it was the Wolves that sent him into retirement. But we got to pick our battles. We got to pick our battles.
You know what you were saying earlier about being from New Jersey and being an asshole? Yeah.
Imagine if I was still in New Jersey. Imagine that. You don't have to. I would be Danny Hurley.
Yes.
You don't have to.
You'd be Danny Hurley, or you'd disappear.
True. That's in play.
Yeah, it's entirely possible that you've been disappeared.
Some of these almost tickets that don't come home.
Yeah.
They don't get paid the same way.
No, they don't. All right, from an 828.
Hey, Ovies and Joe Giglio. This is Robert in Raleigh, and I actually have a favor to ask. Wanted to surprise my wife for Valentine's Day, and she listens to the show along with me. And this year, for Valentine's Day, I have bought her the Two Roosters Secret Pint of the Month Club for the next year. So happy Valentine's Day, Sweet Pea. Thank you, gents. Love the show always. And take care. Happy Valentine's Day.
All right, now listen.
So that was the surprise.
You got to be prepared for the secret pint, just so you know. Usually it's 2 a month, okay? And one of them is going to be super crazy delicious.
Okay.
One of them is going to be a little funky. So as long as you're okay with that, you're going to be okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's why you go to Two Roosters, because they do some things that you go, wait, what?
Now, I like the super funky. I want my picture on the wall that says, he ate the whole carton of a green bean casserole. I want my picture, Jared. That's what I want.
That's what you want. All right, this is from a 704 number that I believe is about my prompt about NC State and Clemson basketball.
Hey, Joe, it's Jesse in Durham. I am calling to respond to the prompt about would you rather be Clemson men's basketball or NC State men's basketball. I feel I'm somewhat uniquely qualified to talk about this because I am a graduate of both universities. I did my undergrad at NC State and my graduate work at Clemson. And I can tell you that at least when I was there from 2014 to 2016, absolutely no one gave a flying shit about Clemson men's basketball. And I don't have the years in front of me, but I can tell you that it was not one of their running hot years. I feel like Clemson men's basketball has gotten better in the last 4 years. But, I mean, that was also the start of like the peak of Clemson football. So from my perspective, I would rather be NC State, who from year to year, I guess really just last year had a peak of success and is now in the doldrums. But that might change. You know, if Brownell keeps improving the Clemson program, which he definitely has over the last few years, then that might change. But right now, I'd still rather be NC State. Thanks, guys. Love the show.
The eye rolling that took place when I reminded Giglio of my prompt was definitely worth the price of admission for even asking that question. This is from a 919.
Gentlemen, calling in, want to discuss the comparison of Brad Brownell versus NC State over the last, 15 seasons. I think the clear answer, if you're talking about Keats versus Brown over 15 seasons, I don't know if that really is a fair comparison considering Brownell was there, I think, with 8 prior seasons before that. So I'm not going to use those statistics. I don't know if that makes any sense. What I'd say is let's compare State to Brownell over that period of time. And I would say that State has clearly been better over that period of time. Specifically, we had, there's, I think, more NCAA tournament runs, but in addition to that, there was a Final Four and ACC tournament title and one Sweet 16. Okay. However, look at the Keats versus Brownell since 2018 records. I would say, other than March, and you have to take that into consideration, what occurred last March. And I would probably say that I would still take Keats because of that. However, it is a reasonable conversation because if you look at the two teams compared to each other over that time, Brownell's teams have clearly been more consistent than NC State over that period. They also went to an Elite Eight over that period of time. I think they've been to maybe one less or the same amount of NCAA tournaments over that period of time. They've been as good, if not better, than NC State within the ACC over that period of time across the board, other than, again, the ACC tournament run last year. And when, again, State finished got 9th or 8th, 10th maybe in the ACC last year in the regular season. This year they're 20-5 right now, just beat Carolina and Duke back-to-back. State hasn't had this good of a regular season team since the Matt Freege NC State team, as compared to this year's Clemson team. State has not had a top 5 seed in the NCAA tournament since that season, okay? Clemson might be a 4 seed this year, maybe potentially higher if they can continue winning. So I don't know. It's close, to tell you the truth. I'd still take Keats, but it's a reasonable argument to be made over the last 8 years as far as Brownell. He's done a very good job with his team.
You want to go on the what if machine?
Sure, let's go into the what if machine.
Brad Brownell is the reason that Kevin Keats is actually the coach at NC State.
Okay.
Because Debbie's first choice in the last cycle when she made this hire was Will Wade.
Right.
And the reason that she talked to Will Wade and Kevin Keats was Will Wade came back and said, I need to check on the Clemson job before I commit to you. Because at the time where Clemson made the tournament that year, but it was only the second time in Brownell's tenure. So from 11 through 17, he makes the tournament once.
Yeah.
So they kept Brownell, and then he rewarded them by making the tournament the very next year. But once Will Wade had indicated to Debbie, hey, I need to check on what Clemson's doing, she knew she had a hard yes from Kevin. So she didn't screw around because you remember what happened in previous searches.
I know.
And she was not about anybody wavering. So she said, fine, you go check on Clemson. I'm hiring Kevin Keats.
There you go.
So in a roundabout way, they can thank Brad Brownell or curse Brad Brownell. Either way you want to do it.
Again, I think what I'm trying to get at with Clemson, I think you hit on it yesterday, is that there's a mindset around Clemson basketball that's actually somewhat refreshing. That in any other situation, Brad Brownell's out of a job.
Yeah, again, I'll repeat, from 11 through 17, they made the tournament once his first year.
He's out of a job.
Now, to defend Brad Brownell for a second here, his worst year was 13-18. He's had one losing season as the head coach at Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty good.
No, it's Brad Brown. Given the situation, Brad Brown has done a very, very good job. Of course, in order to make this work, is that you need football to be running hot.
Sure, but also what has happened the last few years? Like, why have they suddenly become? Brad Brownell's always been a good XNO basketball coach. Always,
he has.
But what has changed in the last few years that has led to Clemson's success? They've invested in NIL. Like,
this isn't complicated.
How many more lines do you need me to draw?
Yeah, this isn't complicated. Not
well. Now, what else has happened? You've had legends retire at those other two schools. So, hey, man, you got to be in position when your opportunity comes. No doubt.
Yeah,
no doubt.
Big thanks to our friends at Mosquito Authority and Pest Authority. You can check them out at bugsbite.com. Again, that's bugsbite.com. Get the outside of your house taken care of. The inside of your house, well, it's still cold and miserable outside, but it'll be springy and summery before you know it.
One thing I mentioned, and Hayes talked to me, he's like, man, that moisture berry is like, a lot of people don't understand what that is. He's like, but I got to send you some before and after pictures.
Okay.
I said, yes, please do. So people have a better visual concept of what we're talking about. Because we say shrink wrap and we think it kind of covers it, right? But you'll see.
Big thanks. Speaking of your home, you want to save money on your home and auto, and that's what Matt Davis over at State Farm can do. Check him out online at InsureGarner.com, theoginsurance.com, or just call him directly at 919-779-8277. Things like the shrink wrap, if you will, actually can help with your home insurance and home value and everything else. So these are all little tips and tricks that Matt Davis can help you with.
Remind me to get Matt to give me a scouting report about Max Raynaud.
Okay.
Right now for Saturday. I'll let him have the official OG vote.
Okay.
For ACC Player of the Year.
Oh, that'll set some people off. So rather than being set off, do it comfortably. Wear some sweatpants. Wear a hoodie.
And look at you, Rob blowing this thing.
Rob blowing this bad boy up with the home field. Go to homefieldapparel.com. Use that promo code OG24 to save 15% off your order. We got a Butcher's Market OG live coming your way tomorrow. We're going to be in the studio. It'll be chilling. We'll have a good time.
We have a lot to get into.
We do. As I laid out at the beginning of today's show, we're already in evergreen protocol, and it's only a few days after the Super Bowl. What has happened to our business? We'll see you then.